We're back again for our second podcast episode for the Pizza Hotline podcast. I just want to welcome everyone that's tuning in either on Spotify, maybe even on iTunes, YouTube even, or even Facebook. We just want to welcome you guys as the viewers. Thank you for joining us on this experience so far. It's been really good. The first episode, we went through it, and you know what? We felt it was a pretty good first episode, very informational. A lot of touch points here and there about the business and where Pizza Hotline kind of came from as a brand. And for this one, we're going to be actually touching on running a family business and just perspectives of a father and son dynamic kind of leading into that.
What about the husband and wife?
Yeah, that too. We can definitely touch on that.
Or boyfriend and girlfriend originally.
Yeah, because that's where it started, right?
That's where it started.
Yeah.
Or how about this one? Boyfriend, girlfriend, possibly father-in-law and mother-in-law and sister-in-law. All in the kitchen.
And sister-in-law boyfriend for a period.
No, that came years later.
The whole family tree, basically.
yeah.
No, that's great. We can.
So you want to talk about difficult dynamics?
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna get into that for sure.
Yeah.
Because we situated ourselves basically about like how Pizza Hotline kind of operates, the values, the brand. But I'd like to ask from an outside perspective, kind of looking in. You know, what was it like running it as a father, or maybe even first as boyfriend and girlfriend kind of thing?
Well, I'm not sure where to start, to be honest with you, because it has its challenges.
Yeah.
It especially has its challenges when you want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, I got into the business, learning the way, today my in-laws ran a business, everything from how they would make their dough and make the homemade pastas to the gnocchis. Everything was homemade. Everything was scratch.
Right.
Our sauce, everything, a lot of it still is. But so I don't know if you guys got grandparents. Have you ever asked them for a recipe or watched them in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried that with Italian grandparents?
Have you ever So here's the way it works.
Yeah.
If you try to nail down a recipe and say, okay, what's the weight of yeast? What's the weight? They have no idea of weight. Mm-hmm. It's all a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Sprinkle this.
They sprinkle this and they sprinkle that. Yeah, exactly.
This much.
So, oh my God, was that a challenge? Like, it was taking those recipes. First rule of order was learn everything and learn it the way they were doing it. Mm-hmm. And as I was going through that, in my mind, I couldn't wait to make the changes to the processes so that it would be much more easy on us, right?
Yeah.
So dealing with an older Italian who's been in the kitchen for, 20 years or 30 years prior to that, and introducing change doesn't go very well.
Right.
Okay, it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of challenges when it came to when it comes to working with family in a business. It's not easy.
Right.
Who and who listens to who, right? So does sometimes I think a certain way, sometimes my wife thinks a certain way, and we all come with our own biases, and so who's right and who's wrong, or no, it's not just about who's right or wrong. At that time, you both think you're right and wrong. It's who has the authority in the say, right? So it becomes a lot more talk than needs to be. Right?
Yeah.
A lot more discussion than you would have wished for. That's for sure. But I did that for a number of years, and then my wife, Teresa, she kind of moved out of the business, and as we were growing, because I just took it in a different way.
Right. So when was that point, or when that point of discussion of when when Teresa was pulling away from the business, kind of thing?
That happened after about a year to two in the business.
Okay. Yeah.
That's when that took place.
Yeah, and it was more so you leading that charge after.
I stuck with it, and she left for a while. Left in terms of the daily running the store. I did that, and then I got into a car accident in, when was that? 1990, I think it was. Got into a pretty bad car accident, and I was out of commission in a bed pretty well for must have been a good month, 2 months.
Wow.
And it was excruciating pain to move, and so that's when she jumped back in and took control of, at that time, our first location on St. Anne's.
Okay, so that was when that happened. Okay, and I guess Antonio. So when did you start coming into the business growing up?
When I was born.
Right when you were born, so it's right from the get-go.
Yeah, so
like a baby, just tossing it.
Throw him in the air.
Yeah.
Spin him around a few times.
Yeah.
Put a couple of pepperoni and cheese on his head. And
I was in the business. I was involved in some capacity from when I was born. Like, I think my Facebook profile picture is a picture of me when I was, I think, 3. On the flyers, eating a big slice of pizza in the uniform, and I named my stuffed animal Ralph Pepperoni when I was a little kid, because I was in the kitchen with them, right? So they would be working or doing whatever, and I would just be there. If I wasn't at school or if I wasn't with a family member, I would be there. So I spent a lot of time in the first couple locations when I was very young, and I'd do everything. I would, fold box, like everything a young kid could do in the kitchen, right? So I'd fold a lot of pizza boxes.
Yeah.
And more than anything, I was just kind of a fly on the wall. And as I got older, my involvement got, I guess, bigger around school. So in the summers, I would come do different things by that point, it was then the corporate office. We were pretty well established in a franchising model at that point. So I wasn't working in the stores as much as I was working in the office for the stores. So I did a period in accounting. I did a period in marketing. I did a period when I was really young. This was before Photoshop was a thing for me. I used Fireworks, the other Adobe suite, and I would I didn't know how to close cut things, so I would zoom in because we had product shots that we need to put on our website. I would individually erase each pixel of the picture with a 1 pixel set eraser, because that's just how I knew how to do it. Yeah. So I was always there, and then
those pictures look pretty good though. We use them on our website.
Yeah, your turnaround time is 2 weeks a picture, and it's free labor, so there's really no loss.
Can't complain.
No.
Yeah,
but
that's how we keep our prices and our value down.
Yeah.
Right? They use little kid versions of me.
Yeah,
but no, I was always involved in some capacity, and as I got older, I then started to get back into the kitchens. So I worked a lot at Cafe 22. I worked on the line for a bit. I worked in the front of house for a bit, and as I graduated high school and went to university, I started to pursue more business school. I had always kind of stayed away from business schooling because when I was younger, I wanted to do get into medicine. So I pursued more sciences, biological sciences, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I had a change of heart in school. I went back and I did my MBA, and I came into the business in more of, I guess, a higher level capacity after that. And I've been here ever since.
Right. Okay. So was joining the family business always something you kind of wanted to do, or was it just a desire that you had from the get-go?
Yeah, I think I always liked the business.
Yeah.
But for me, as I got older, I think the challenge was, do I what does the business really mean? Because for me, for years, it was after school, I'd come to a restaurant, I'd eat cheese sticks, and I'd sit with my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle. So, what's not to like?
Yeah.
Whereas in school, I think in general, school gives a little bit less of a focus on business as an actual career and as a profession. It's great if you want to be a a dentist, doctor, lawyer, accountant. It's not so great if you want to start your own business, right? So I always liked the academic side of sciences, but I always knew I liked the business. So I don't know if it was something I always knew I wanted to do or something that I just always knew I liked, and I wanted to see if I liked something else more, or if that was really it for me, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, because I find it really interesting because there's, you've seen time and time again from uh, other kids who have kind of grown up in a family business in that way. Sometimes they're for it, or sometimes they're like on the complete opposite spectrum of it, and they just don't want to do anything with it. So it's really interesting to see that kind of perspective that you have growing up as a kid and being exposed to this family business and being kind of like ushered in, and then coming back with a stronger sense of your background, having gotten that MBA in business. So yeah, that's great. And I just wanted to see like further, like how has been joining the family business in this sense, has it affected relationships within your family kind of thing? Have you seen some kind of some relationships grown or strengthened possibly?
Well, I think any level of involvement, more or less, ultimately changes the family dynamic, because in a family business, it's really one and the same. As much as you can talk about there being separation and all this other stuff, you're working on your business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like
Right.
we go home and we're still talking about the business. We go out for a family dinner, the business comes up. It's just, it is what it is. Especially in ours, where throughout the years, extended family has been involved, and I think we navigate it pretty well. But I guess, yeah, I would change a typical like father-son relationship or husband-wife relationship or in-law relationship, because there's another facet to that relationship that is the business relationship. So, when you have to have a business conversation, you have to have it. And it doesn't matter if we're talking or if other family members are talking. The same way it doesn't matter in another office if you're a closer friend or an acquaintance or whatever. If a conversation needs to happen, it needs to happen.
Exactly.
So it's definitely different from a typical family relationship. I don't know if it's better or worse. It just is what it is.
Mhm. So I guess, Jerry, echoing that same question, like has having this business and running it as the head of it, do you feel like some relationships have kind of been strengthened in that same regard?
Yeah, I think when you're around people, you don't realize it, you don't think about it, but you are strengthening your relationships, right? If you're around someone, you build a relationship with that person. If you're not around them, you don't.
Yeah.
Actually, the relationships go in their own direction, right?
Mhm.
So the closer and the more you're around people, the more the relationships build. It's about finding the right balance,
Yeah.
right? Work, home, work, home. There needs to be some separation and guidelines put in place. We do talk a lot about the business, and we're always on it. But since Antonio started, it's changed, and you find what works. When I was with that time my girlfriend, who's my wife today, we figured out what worked for us then,
Mhm.
right? So you have to figure out what works in that. Who's good at what? Who's strong at what? Who's better at and what do you enjoy doing?
Like playing to your strengths, basically.
Playing to your strengths,
Yeah.
always. I'm a believer of that. And you look for that in anyone, and whether it's family or not,
Mhm.
you always want to play to strengths, and because naturally where you're strong is what you enjoy. It's
Mhm.
usually what it is.
Yeah.
And so if you're enjoying it, you can take on a lot more and do a lot better job at that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like just bringing that to light and talking about that kind of topic, I feel like if there's any people who are listening right now, even them trying to even find their own balance within their own family businesses and being able to kind of relate in that spectrum.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say the biggest thing is, I mean, like everything else, the biggest thing is transparency, right?
Mhm.
And on the point about playing to your strengths, I think some businesses and some family businesses, when they fail, I think there's some maybe not even intentional nepotism, but it's like, oh, that's my son, so he should be in this senior position, where maybe he was fast tracked, or maybe he didn't actually go through and do things from ground up and gain that contextual understanding. And I think one thing that we retain is we're always nobody gets the job, or nobody gets to kind of have that say unless there's some reasonability to believe what's coming out of their mouth, right?
Mhm.
So just because you're in our family doesn't mean that you should have an ultimate say on part of our operations policies and procedures. If you've never worked in a store,
Yes.
if you can't understand the ramifications of your decision, then you shouldn't make the decision. And sometimes family businesses, I think, rely a little too heavily or place a little too much emphasis on the last name and not enough emphasis on the character and the validity of the person in their position.
Definitely.
And I really think that's important.
Yeah, I heard a good saying once. It was, and it was, family. Family does not have a right to management.
Mhm.
They may have a right to ownership.
Right.
Right? You get it?
Yeah.
You may, if I'm the founder and I own a business, and of course, if I go, I'll probably pass it on to my kids, right? The ownership. But when it comes to running a business and management and that should go to the best qualified, best fit candidate, whether or not that's family.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in that.
Yeah, I feel that's important too.
I think that's a reason why a lot of family businesses fail, because they end up keeping it in the hands of their family member at the expense of good management.
Yes. Yeah.
There's that trade-off.
Yeah.
They're not willing to make the hard decision.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you got to really take a step back and look at the bigger picture and see what's best for the
Best for the business.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the business rewards the shareholders and the family owns the shares.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to stick to that philosophy, and I think you'll be okay.
Yeah. I guess maybe even touching on those philosophies. So what are some key takeaways of things that you've learned? Like, what are some values that just have stuck all the way from the beginning till today of being part of this family business?
Values, like,
I would say transparency.
Yeah.
Just be honest. If you see something or you want to say something, say it. Again, treat it like any other business. That's really the best way, probably the best advice from what I've seen so far, at least, is if you let the family dynamic get in the way of what's best for the organization, you're going to suffer. Your organization will suffer, which will cause your family to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody needs to be able to sit around the table with a mutual respect to say we're all here with the same goal. That goal is the business needs to do well, or the business needs to grow, or the business needs to sell, or whatever their goal is at that time. But like he said, if the family are the shareholders have a certain responsibility and they need to act in that responsibility. If the family are managers, then managers have a certain responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a mix, so you have some family members and some outside members, the family members shouldn't get any special say or special whatever. A lot of the time, if you simplify things back down, the rules and the kind of the engagement is pretty clear. But I think a lot of families over convolute it because the personal relationships start to blur lines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can things can get messy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely finding that fine line between things too. It's like separating to a certain point family and business kind of thing, and being able to differentiate that. Yeah, definitely. I guess talking about family in general, Jerry, do you have, what is one of the craziest things that you've seen happen in your years of like running Pizza Hotline? I guess within the family.
No,
'cause-
God. Like, what do you mean crazy? Like,
I don't know. Is there like a story that you feel like you have to tell that?
holy,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to give me a moment there. It's so many years.
Yeah.
I have to open up doors in my head
Mhm.
to go back.
Yeah.
Oh,
I gotta think. I don't know. For me, it's just, I don't know if there's any one thing or
Mhm.
just being able to almost watch your family in it's like, it can kind of be like a sitcom. Like you're watching when I was younger, your grandpa, your aunt and uncle, your mom and dad in a kitchen,
Mhm.
just having to deal with whatever comes through the door. And like, it sometimes it was like an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was
Yeah.
like you just watched them react and act and try to do their best and get under each other's skin because it's 16 hours into the day and they want to go home.
The story just kind of unfolds on itself.
Sometimes it's definitely just a comedy how things happen. But yeah, I don't know if there was one specific thing.
Well, there's crazy means a lot of different things too. Like, there's been serious crazy things. There's been funny crazy things. And,
if there's a funny crazy thing that kind of happened.
Funny crazy, huh? It's probably a few of those. Here's a good story. I wasn't personally involved with this one. I'm not sure if we should say this on record, but when my father-in-law owned his business, my father-in-law has a very short fuse, and so he had a customer who called him, and he was the delivery driver at that time because it was just him, his wife, and the 2 kids that ran the business, and this customer kept phoning and complaining. So one day he ends up making the pizza with his wife personally. Now this guy, like, they've got him on the radar, right? Back then there was no computers or anything. You just knew that customer called. It's that address. Oh, watch out. Let's make this pizza perfect. So he makes the pizza. He goes and delivered. Lo and behold, he gets a call of another complaint. So they said, okay, sure, we'll remake it and we'll come out and bring you another pizza. So what does he do? He goes and brings the pizza, and he says, and he throws the pizza on the ground, stomps on it, and says, you're not gonna screw me any longer. Don't order from us again. Pretty well, right? Don't order from us again. But there's no way I'm giving you this pizza. I'd rather throw it in the garbage than let you steal from me again. And
he reacted like that a couple times. There's another story, not to throw my grandpa under the bus, but there's another story that he told me once, and my mom has also told me this, where they went to deliver a pizza to an apartment or something, and they were in the elevator, and it was a rougher area, and they get in the elevator, and these couple big guys are in the elevator, and they look at my grandpa, and they start going, oh, the pizza smells nice. Why don't you give us a slice? And they start really harassing him. They're going to steal the pizza, right? Because they got him in the elevator now. There's nothing he can do. They're going to just take it. And he gets so mad that he just, again, throws it on the ground and stomps on it because he would rather just stomp on it than give the pizza away and calmly leave. And just flips out on them. And I think my mom was like 8 and was in the elevator with him and was just terrified looking at how this unfolded. And they got off the elevator, they left, he went back to the shop and kept making food for the rest of the night. But that's what I mean about like, crazy. It's like you can't write that. Like that would be on a comedy show somewhere. Like why is that the normal response? If you're getting robbed, everyone else cooperates, tries to neutralize the situation. He goes full atomic and stomps on it.
Here's another good one. So customer walks through the door. My mother-in-law goes to the front counter, and he says, hey lady, I need some bread. I need your bread. So my mother-in-law goes to the back of the kitchen to get bread. She thought he was hungry. She thought he couldn't afford it. So he's robbing them, saying, give me all your bread.
Like, give me the dough.
Give me the dough. So she thinks he's
But she's got an Italian accent, so she's going, oh, he's bread, he's hungry.
He's hungry. So she goes to the back of the kitchen, gets a loaf of bread to hand to him. My father-in-law comes to the front, starts arguing with his wife. What are you doing? He's robbing us. Can't you see the guy's robbing us? So they start going at it between each other. And
in the middle of
the they're being robbed.
While they're being
robbed.
Oh God.
I forgot about that story.
That's probably the best one, actually.
Yeah, but there's tons. I mean, there's like even in the later years, there's been some. Again, in the last episode, we talked about our office is located above one of our franchise locations, and my uncle, his brother-in-law, and my aunt are the franchisees of that location. Okay. So I've got to see my aunt and uncle in so many hilarious situations over the years. If it's like a crazy customer comes through the door, or I've seen stacks of pizza boxes just fall on them before when they're walking. Like it's you can't, like, I don't even know how many things, but that's part of what you get in a family business. There's you're there all day, every day with your family. So when something funny happens, it happens to your dad or your aunt or your cousin instead of a coworker. So you can laugh a little harder.
Yeah, because you get all these just genuine moments, and it's funny. It's funnier because it's your family, and it's just like, well, it happened to you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. That is great because like just hearing a bunch of family stories like that. I personally feel because like there's I've had my own fair share of like family stories and stuff like that, but being able to see that and that there's some form of relation or relatability that I can have with you guys and sharing with your family stories like that, I feel like that's a very key point, especially with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to create, especially with this podcast and this episode. Sure. Well, if you made it this far into the podcast, I want to give you a round of applause for sure for our audience and a huge thank you on behalf of everyone here at Pizza Hotline. For myself, for Jerry and Antonio, we do appreciate you guys listening in, tuning in, and really just diving into this content and really experiencing it for what it is. So be sure to stay tuned for each episode as it is released. For the most part, each episode is going to be kind of a 2-part series. That's what we're planning to do. And as they're released on iTunes or Spotify, we'll definitely let you guys know. So again, thank you guys for joining me on this episode. It's been a pleasure.
Again.
Yes,
Looking forward.
Yeah. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear any more stories, let us know.
Yeah, we'll get better and better as we go too.
We'll think of some more crazy stories.
Crazy stories, and then we'll share it. Yeah,
there's a few for sure. Oh yeah,
definitely. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.